Okay, everybody, Goldie and Ice podcast, pre-Game 7, pre-100 and, am I even keeping track now? 106th game of the season. Think about that. 209 games over the last 2 years for the Florida Panthers. It comes down to one game. As always, the Goldie and Ice podcast here in the playoffs. Easy for me to say. It's presented by the good folks at Amerant Bank. Go to amerantbank.com. Check out the Panther-themed credit card and everything else that Amerant Bank has to offer. A terrific organization run by terrific people, including the CEO, Jerry Plush, and everybody else at Amerant. All right, folks, I know everybody's nervous. Everybody's wondering what is going on. Because the team from Game 1 through 105, for the most part, and again, you're always going to have bumps in the road. They did about 3 times during the regular season, came out of it, including the one late in the season. And then we're cruising along in the playoffs, winning 15 out of 20 and 1 game away from the first Stanley Cup in franchise history. But from that point on, the Edmonton Oilers have played better than the Panthers. They've been quicker than the Panthers. They've been the better team. That's it. Their special teams have been better. So here we are. And none of it that's happened so far matters Monday night at 8:20-ish. It really doesn't. It's a whole new game, but the Panthers need to do everything basically better, except defend Connor McDavid, because they did that wonderfully well in Game 6. In fact, Game 6, this is when you know things like going your way, it was going Edmonton's way, is the first time in his career, which I have a note on that in a moment, first time in Connor McDavid's career, no shots or points in a game and his team wins. And it's only the second time that's happened in the last 6 years. And the first time in 3 years that's happened. So they did a good job on him, but again, it was a couple of mistakes going the other way. Now, irony for Connor McDavid that he can cement his place amongst the all-time hockey greats without debate. And I'll say that because he's already in with the greats, but you'll always have that debate about winning a Stanley Cup. And in this sport, usually the really great players, and you can go back, to as long as you want. There were only 6 teams back then, so obviously the great players, for the most part, won championships. But even in the salary cap era, even in the expansion era, most of the really, truly great players of their time ended up winning a Stanley Cup, or multiple. That's just a fact. And the latest example, Ovechkin and Crosby. And, Ovechkin waited a very long time for his. So, again, you could find examples, but for the most part, you win it. And ironic that he will try to win it in the building where he was drafted back in 2015 when the Panthers hosted the draft. Now, the Panthers somehow, here's the bottom line, okay? Number one, they got to start the game better, okay? They cannot be back in their heels. They cannot do the old, the water is cold in the pool. Let me just put my foot in and see if I can. You just got to jump in. Number two, they need to find a way to avoid the errors that lead to the odd man rushes, because they are the best, have been all year, the best defensive team off the rush. They don't give up those kind of opportunities, and in this series they have. Now, some of that's the Edmonton Oilers. Look, there's another team on the other side that made the Cup final that's really good and really fast, and you have to give them credit. Number one, sticking with it. And number two, some of the chances they have created in transition. And keep in mind, with the exception of Game 2, they've had some of those chances throughout the series. And here's the bottom line. And I've been saying this for, 2 months now. And he has, for the most part. Sergei Bobrovsky has to make all of the saves he's supposed to make. And he's really done a good job of that throughout the playoffs. He has. There haven't been any real soft ones where you would say, he's got. And then he's going to have to make a handful of saves you're not supposed to make, because that's what it takes to win the Stanley Cup. It doesn't take a good effort, a to your ability effort from every guy. It takes an above your ability effort to win the whole thing. Like Edmonton right now is getting from its third line. That's above their grade, their playing grade. guys like Connor Brown doing what they're doing. So I think a lot of it comes down to that, because the Oilers are fast. They got their chances in game one. Bobrovsky was terrific. He's got to come up big. And the Panthers need some big offensive efforts from guys that they've relied on, not only this year, but for a number of years. I thought Barkov played his butt off, and he was terrific in game number 6. I mean, look, that goal's taken off the board. You know me by now, I think. I don't blame referees and calls. I always say in sports, if it's one call, then you didn't do your job. You've got to overcome stuff. You got to overcome injuries. You got to overcome penalty calls, whatever it is. Could it have turned the game? Sure, it could have. Would have made a 2-0 game 2-1. But I was just disappointed you were even down 2-0 in the first place with 2 rush chances. Guys that are normally very responsible with the puck need to do that. If the D is pinching, you got to get there. And I know the Oilers have done a good job, okay, of pressuring the Panthers. So when they dump that puck in, those shoot-ins and those dump-ins, I know to the average, eye, all of us watching the game, maybe we don't think a lot about it. They are so important. But those shoot-ins, if you're letting Skinner get behind that net and get a hold of that puck, the forecheck can't really get started. And a lot of that is Edmonton's pressure. Again, give them credit. There's a team on the other side doing a very good job of pressuring the Panthers in the neutral zone. So when that puck is put deep, they don't have quite as much time to do it exactly the way they want to. They've got to find a way to do that. And you know what? You look at those top 6, they've got to play the games of their lives. All those guys. Reinhart, Barkov, Tkachuk, Ben, everybody's got to step up, and that third line needs to match Edmonton's third line. So this team has shown the ability to do it. Bobrovsky has shown the ability to come up big. At any point, I know a lot of people don't like it. If you would have said it was going to be Game 7, you would, I understand everybody's standpoint of it's not that. It's the way they got here. They looked like they were going to clearly at some point in Game 4 or 5 or even 6 win this thing. And, Game 5 was a great opportunity. For the most part, they played a good game, but they took a few too many penalties. Maybe the victim of some questionable calls, but again, you got to fight through that. You got to kill them off. Bobrovsky's got to make the saves, and the comeback just fell short. They've also got to find a way to get inside that Edmonton D. It's not easy. They're doing a good job. They've got some big players back there. You got to find a way. It's been way too easy for Stuart Skinner, honestly. I mean, Game 4 and Game 6, and I'm not knocking the guy. He's been terrific. Give him credit. What a story if he wins it. Edmonton native. But every starting goaltender in the league basically would have won Game 4 and Game 6. I mean, Game 5, they got 3 on him. He made a few saves in that third period, but it's really up to the Panthers to make his life more difficult. And again, we've seen this so many times. We've talked about this, and the Panthers have pulled through and done it. So, hell, why waver now? Cats in 7. Enjoy it, everybody. We'll talk to you soon on the Goalie on Ice podcast presented by Amaret Bank.